Good evening, Dr. Martin. I hope you're doing well. This is my presentation for our class. It's called Equal Opportunities, the Internship Experiences of Students from Historically Marginalized Racial and Ethnic Communities in a World Language Program. So I know this wasn't part of the of this assignment, I believe, but just to give you a little bit of background about the problem or the problems in which my study are grounded, is grounded, I'm sorry, um, are some of the problems that I noticed as an educator working at the institution where the study will be conducted for about 8 years now. I noticed that students from historically marginalized racial and ethnic communities, um, which include Black and Latinx or Afro-Latinx students, are underrepresented in world language programs and internship programs. So this is something that I noticed as an educator, and that's where my interest in the present study is grounded. And I also noticed that world language programs tend to not align with career readiness standards and with the learning needs and career goals of students from historically racial and ethnic communities. Um, so I decided to design a study with the purpose of understanding and describing the internship experiences of students from historically marginalized racial and ethnic communities in a world language program, specifically in a French program, um, with special attention to internship positive outcomes and challenges. So once again, I don't think this is part of this assignment, but just to give you a little bit of background about some of the research gaps that I have identified in the literature. Um, there's a lack of qualitative studies on the internship experiences of students overall. Most studies have been quantitative, and most of them have relied on survey methods to collect data on internships. And students from historically marginalized racial and ethnic communities tend to be underrepresented. Um, in the literature, most studies have not um, focused on the racial or ethnic backgrounds of students, but have recruited students from the overall university population without emphasis on some of the demographic factors that may inform their internship experiences. There's an absence of world language internships studies. Most studies have not really looked at internship experiences within specific majors or specific fields. And if they did, they're usually in the fields of sciences or education or business, but none have been conducted on world language studies. And finally, limited research has been conducted on minority serving institutions, such as predominantly Black institutions, historically Black colleges and universities, and Hispanic serving institutions. Most studies on internships have been conducted in predominantly white institutions. So here are some of the research gaps that have informed the design of my study. And so I have built, based on this literature review, I've built a theoretical framework around four concepts: world readiness for language learning, career readiness, LangCrit, and community cultural wealth. And I'll just give you some brief information about it, just because it does, my research questions do mention some of these concepts, so just to make sure that you're familiar with those concepts, especially the first one, that I think unless you're a world language scholar, you may not be familiar with. So speaking of world readiness standards, so this first framework, this first guiding theory will be um, viewed through the lens of the World Readiness Standards by the ACTFL, which is the largest organization for language learning in the United States. And they designed a set of standards and 5 goal areas: communication, cultures, connections, comparisons, and communities, in which 11 standards are included. So that's the lens that I will be looking at to investigate internship outcomes and internship challenges in the context of world language studies. Now, given that this framework doesn't really emphasize career readiness, I have decided to include the NASA's 8 career readiness competencies as a second guiding theory. So it's a set of 8 competencies that many universities around the United States have implemented, and that's probably one of the most common ways to assess career readiness in higher education. Now, I wanted or I needed a framework or a guiding theory that would emphasize race, because although one of the 8 competencies of the career readiness competencies is equity and inclusion, it is race and ethnicity are not emphasized in this framework, nor are they emphasized in the previous one, world readiness. So I chose LANCRIT, which emerged from critical race theory and critical race pedagogy, especially on the principles of racism, intersectionality, and counter narratives. And LANCRIT is situated at the intersection of CRT and CRP and world language studies. So it's bridging the gap between critical race theory / critical race pedagogy and language studies, which historically have not emphasized racial and ethnic issues or social justice issues. And so it is articulated around 3 core tenets or 3 major concepts, which are identity, race, and language, which are viewed as fluid, complex, imposed, but also negotiated. So they're all viewed as socially constructed, imposed by society, but also negotiated by each individual. And finally, I didn't want to adopt a deficit-oriented approach, especially when looking at internship challenges. So I chose community cultural wealth as my last guiding theory, which is a set of 6 capitals that students of color, or in my case, students from historically racial and ethnic communities, bring with them to school or to college to navigate school life and overcome potential challenges. So that is the final guiding theory that I have chosen. So based on this literature review, I have crafted the following 2 research questions. How do students from historically marginalized racial and ethnic communities in a world language program describe their internship outcomes? And how do they describe any potential challenges that they encounter during their internships? That will be the second research question. Each research questions has 3 sub-questions. How do self-reported outcomes relate to the ACTFL World Readiness Standards for Learning Language, which we just discussed? And how do self-reported outcomes relate to NASA's career readiness competencies, which we also just described? And which factors of the internship contribute to the reported internship outcomes? Now, looking at challenges, how do challenges relate to issues of race, language, identity, which are the 3 tenets of LANCRIT? And how do they relate to career readiness and world readiness? Because I do believe that internship challenges can also be related to world readiness competencies and career readiness competencies. For example, communicating in a world language may be difficult for students during an internship. I'm just assuming. And which factors contribute to the reported internship challenges, and in what ways do students overcome the reported internship challenges? So that is when Yoso's community cultural wealth will hopefully give me some answers or as a guiding theory. So to answer these two research questions and sub-questions, I propose to design a qualitative descriptive single case study. So my goal is to really bring in a qualitative perspective in a quantitative dominated um, literature on internships. And my case study will be descriptive. So my goal is not to explore nor to explain, but rather to describe um, how interns in a world language program present their internship experience and how they talk about their internship experience. And it will be a single case study. The case being the internship experiences of students from historically marginalized communities in a world language program. So in my case, the case is a phenomenon rather than a specific university. So although all internships are housed in the same world language program, the case is really a phenomenon rather than an internship site or the university site. So I could argue that this is a single case of an internship experience as a phenomenon with four different internship sites. So it could also be viewed as a single case study with four subunits. Um, and I chose a case study because I believe it is the best methodology to conduct research um, in a bounded environment with many contextual factors such as the program, the internship director, the faculty member overseeing the internship, the fact that the university is located in the Atlanta area, which I believe is a very unique city. Um, the fact that Georgia State University, where the study will be conducted, has a very unique student population as well. It is a predominantly Black institution. It is the only predominantly Black institution in the United States to also be a Research One institution. So I believe that the internship sites, the research site, the participants will be unique. So that is why a case study methodology feels like the ideal methodology to answer my research questions. Now, in a case study, it is very important to describe the research setting. So I will do just that in this next section. So the study will be conducted in a large and urban public university in the southeast of the United States, located in the Atlanta metropolitan area, which is the sixth largest metropolitan area in the United States and the second largest with the most Black and African American individuals in the United States after the New York City metropolitan area. So it is a very unique and very diverse macro level environment, which I think is important to note. The university has a predominantly Black institution denomination, so it serves about 43% of Black or African American students, as well as 18% of Latinx students. So Black and African American students constitute the majority group at this institution. So specifically, the study will be conducted in the Department of World Languages and Cultures, which is housed in the College of Arts and Sciences. We offer degrees, bachelor's degrees as well as master's degrees in French, German, Spanish, and world languages and cultures. And the French program offers courses at the elementary level, intermediate level, and advanced level, and offers several courses at the graduate level as well. The program only has two permanent faculty members, and specifically, the study will be conducted, as I said, in the context of internships. So since the fall of 2022, students in the French program have the opportunity to complete internships as part of their French major, also French minors, and 19 students have completed an internship since the fall of 2022. So they conducted internships at 4 different internship sites, which include a chamber of commerce, um, a nonprofit organization helping refugees, a nonprofit organization promoting and teaching the French language, as well as a consulate. So each internship site offers multiple internships in the field of marketing, business, translation, interpretation. Um, so there are multiple opportunities for French students. Internships can be face-to-face or hybrid. So all of them include a face-to-face component, even the hybrid ones. And students, if they're accepted for the internship, they register for an internship course and receive 3 course credits. And as part of this course, they submit 2 drafts of their resume, a 5-page reflection in French at the end of the internship. They present their internship experience in English during a public event, which is hosted on WebEx, and all students taking French classes are invited. So those are some of the assignments in this internship course. So now that I have described the research setting, I will describe the sampling and potential participants. So I will use purposeful sampling um, to recruit participants with 2 sampling criteria. The first sampling criterion is the completion of a French minor or a French major. So in my case, French major, because it turns out that all students who have completed an internship um, who identify as Black, Latinx, or Afro-Latinx turn out to be French majors. So all participants will have to be French majors, either in the BA or MA program. And the second sampling criterion is obviously that participants will have to self-identify as Black, Latinx, or Afro-Latinx. I anticipate that I will invite 9 participants to participate in this study. I am aware that they may not all agree to participate, but my rationale for recruiting 9 participants is that 9 students from historically marginalized racial and ethnic communities have completed an internship. So that explains why I would invite 9 participants. So my rationale for inviting all of them was not to reach data saturation, but more so to include all voices, because it did not feel right to invite some former interns to participate, but not others. So especially given that one of my goals is to center the narratives of Black, Latinx, and Afro-Latinx students in the literature on internships. So it didn't feel right to exclude some of these voices, some of their voices. So I will invite those 9 former interns to participate, 4 of whom self-identify as Black, 1 as Afro-Latinx, and 4 as Latinx. The data collection will include 5 different methods. So first, I will analyze the written reflections that interns submitted upon completion of their internship. So those were 5 pages. They were written in target language, so French, and they will be used to stimulate recall during the following steps of the data collection sequence. The second data collection method will be the video presentations that interns submitted upon completion of their internship. So those were between 5 and 7 minutes. They were in English, and students were asked to describe their internship outcomes, any challenges that they may have had to face and overcome. So The instructions were very similar to the research questions in a way. I asked them both to focus on positive outcomes, but also challenges and how they overcame these challenges. So I think these video presentations and these reflections um, can provide valuable insight into their internship experiences right after the internships ended. And like the written reflections, the videos will be used to stimulate recall during the individual interviews, which are the third step in the data collection sequence. So I will use in-depth phenomenological interviewing. The first interview will last for about 30 minutes. Um, I wanted to do a 1 hour interview, but my chair said that it was not realistic. So she suggested 30 minutes. So the first interview will last for about 30 minutes and explore participants' background, their education, how they came to major in French, how was their experience learning French, for example, in high school, how was learning French in college, um, so mostly questions about their background and their education. In the second interview, I will really investigate the phenomenon, which in my case is the internship experience. So I will be asking them a lot of questions about what a typical day looked like during their internship, what are some of the tasks that they were asked to complete, were they the only Black person or Latinx person or Afro-Latinx at the internship side? How did that make them feel? Um, did they encounter any issues? What was most positive about their internship experiences? So this interview, this second one will last for about an hour or 90 minutes, I think. And that will be obviously the longest and most important interview. The third interview will be about reflecting on the internship experience, what the internship meant to them overall, and that will be the opportunity to revisit some of the information that they mentioned during the first and second interview. And I will use recall throughout. I mean, mostly during the second and the third interview. Then I will use focus groups. So there will be two focus groups. So each participant will only participate in one. So my rationale for including two focus groups is to provide more flexibility in terms of scheduling. So if 9 participants agree to participate in the study, then one focus group will have 5 participants and another one will have 4. And I anticipate that they will last for 90 minutes. And the questions I will ask will be very simple on purpose. And it's my rationale for including a focus group is to not only give participants an opportunity to uh, mutually share and construct meaning about their experience, um, but also to feel safer by interacting with individuals from the same racial and ethnic groups, because as the researcher who identify as white, I am aware that I don't belong in the same racial and ethnic group. So I thought this might be the best alternative to counter this limitation. And it also allows me to use crystallization by adding another data collection method. And finally, a questionnaire will be administered at the very end. It will be very brief and have some open-ended questions. So the open-ended questions will be an opportunity to um, for participants to provide any additional insights that they may have forgotten to mention previously or that they may not have been willing to share because the questionnaire will be anonymous. So that will be an opportunity to share honest and potentially negative feedback about the internship experience. And the Likert scale questions will ask the participants to evaluate their internship outcomes and challenges as they relate to the ACTFL's World Readiness Competencies and the NASA's Career Readiness Competencies that I described at the beginning of the presentation. So my goal is not to collect quantitative data, but more so to gain a deeper understanding of how each competency and each standard relates to the internship experience and vice versa. So this is a table that shows the alignment between each research questions and the different data collection methods. So each data collection method will answer part of a research question, and all research questions will be supported by multiple data collection methods. I think that's what I'm trying to show with this table, that I'm pulling from multiple, I'm using crystallization across data collection methods to answer research questions. In terms of data analysis, I will transcribe the video presentations, the individual interviews, and the focus group using WebEx. In addition to transcription, the written reflections that participants submitted upon completion of the internship will be translated into English because they were written in French. So I will hand them my translation and they will have an opportunity to make edits or clarify some of the information, because I believe that translation is very subjective. And part of translating and also transcribing is assigning meaning to an interview or a video presentation. So I want to make sure that my words and the words in the transcript reflect the participants' voices. In terms of coding, I will code the transcripts. So the transcripts of videos, interviews, and focus groups, as well as the written reflections, as well as the open-ended questions in the questionnaire. I will use a thematic analysis, and I will use NVivo to help me code the large amount of data that I will collect. And I will use a combination of inductive deductive coding, which I will describe in just a second. In terms of the questionnaire, I will use Qualtrics to design and administer the questionnaire, and I will calculate the mode and the mean mostly for each item. Again, not to collect quantitative data, but more so to gain a deeper understanding of how participants describe and self-assess their internship outcomes. So this table shows the 2 cycles of coding I will be using. I will do a first coding cycle of open descriptive coding, so mostly using nouns. So I know Saldana doesn't think this is the best approach. I think he argues that process coding is more effective, but I'll try open descriptive coding, and I'll see how I feel, and if I feel like it doesn't really reflect the words of the participants, I will try to use NVivo coding. But I have heard that it's pretty difficult as a novice researcher. So I'm setting my expectation on open descriptive coding, and if I can handle process coding or NVivo coding, I will obviously use those. But for now, probably open descriptive coding. So I would let themes emerge directly from the data. Then I will use code mapping and diagramming as recommended by Saldana to help me categorize and visualize the codes and refine the codes. And then I will do a second coding cycle using Axial coding. So I will create connections between the codes from the first cycle and develop a better sense of categories, themes, concepts, and theories emerging from the data. In terms of ethical considerations, 4 words came to my mind when I thought about ethical considerations. The first one is transparency. I really want my study to be transparent, so that is why I will use memoing, journaling, and I will use very detailed descriptions of the research setting, of the participants, and all the different parts of the design to make sure to create an audit trail and make sure that readers can really assess the transferability or transparency of my study. Flexibility is also an important part of ethical research, I believe. So scheduling interviews and focus groups around the preferences and availability of participants is a very important step. Um, and also flexibility in terms of modality. Some participants may prefer to meet in person, some participants may prefer to meet online. So I will remain flexible when scheduling the interviews and the focus groups. Reciprocity is also an important word. I believe that it is important for researchers to give back. And my way of giving back is to share the perspectives of students who have been underrepresented, sometimes ignored in the literature on the internships. And my way of giving back is to conduct this research um, very ethically, soundly, and making sure that it has implications and that it can help make internships more accessible, world language programs more accessible for Black, Latinx, and Afro-Latinx students. That is my way of giving back, and that is when reciprocity comes in. And finally, honoring voices. I want to make sure that I use a lot of quotes, direct quotes from the participants. I don't want to speak for them, but more so give them an avenue to share their perspectives. So my goal is really to honor their voices. In terms of reflexivity, my interest in social justice issues in education is really grounded in my own experience. Um, I come from a family that has a long history of immigration. I have migrated myself to the United States. My dad is also an immigrant from Portugal. My grandparents are immigrants from Italy. So I have a long history of immigration. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. Um, so I've always been interested in finding ways to make education more accessible because nobody in my family really had the opportunity to go to college just because of life circumstances. And I've also been teaching at an predominantly Black institutions for 8 years. So I have seen some of the inequities that are still um, affecting higher education in the United States and that I've already described at the very beginning of the presentation.